But if you are Bulgarian or Croatian or Bosnian or Serb or any other nationalities of the former Eastern Bloc watching this, take heart from the fact that the Phidias Albion isn't too far behind you, and vengeance will be yours in the end. Given that our final story today takes us to the shores of the Phidias Albion, and variously, shall we say, various conspiracies cooked up by the British government to keep its rebellious provinces under control. And we turn finally today to a series of stories related to Scotland, the land that I currently dwell in. And this is a story that came out of the UK Defence Journal about pro-independence, pro-Scottish independence accounts being run from Iran, which is an interesting scare story. And as with all of these scare stories that are run, whether it's Putin, I see the Sun today, the Murdoch paper has been saying that it's Putin that's sending all the immigrants to Britain. 10 years ago, it was Putin who was actually behind the entire Scottish independence movement. It's Putin who's behind, I don't know, the trains being late. What this story is another classic case of projection, accusing Iran of running, pro-Scottish independence Twitter accounts. In actual fact, what it's about is something deeper and involving British state shenanigans, which, Kit, you've worked on before. And can you explain what is really going on here for the audience? Which, by the way, audience now consists of 1,212 of you. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Keep on sharing. Keep subscribe to the YouTube channel, etc., etc. Yes, Kit, throw to you for our final story for today.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I think this is really interesting. I mean, because it is a long-running lie that there is foreign meddling and involvement in the Scottish independence movement, and this is a lie which has been pushed by fifth columnists within the SNP, for instance. One Stuart MacDonald, who is now thankfully out of Parliament, although he's now a member of the, I believe it's the John Smith Trust, which was set up by a veteran MI6 person, which does tend to give you some clue about whose interests he was actually serving while supposedly fighting for Scottish independence. This article in the UK Defence Journal, at the very end, buried at the bottom, is an editor's note which states this article does not claim that Scottish independence is a foreign plot, nor does it suggest that support for independence is illegitimate, inauthentic, or driven by anything other than sincere political conviction. And this is after a lengthy article explicitly claiming that the entire of online pro-independence movement is being run by Iraq. Right, so it's quite an astonishing editor's note after offering layer upon layer of conspiracy theorizing about how, well, some pro-independence accounts on Twitter have not been as active since the conflict against Iran began. And this is somehow proof of the fact that prominent independence accounts are run by Iranians. Yeah, like I say, this is a very well-worn, long-standing narrative, which is completely false. We heard, yes, that there was significant, for many years we heard there was significant penetration of the Scottish independence movement by Russia. Zero evidence to support this whatsoever. In May 2021, the Henry Jackson Society published a report claiming that Iran was peddling disinformation to influence the Scottish election. It offered zero evidence whatsoever apart from reporting by Press TV on current affairs related to Scotland. And it's a very, very effective means, or at least from the perspective of the brain trust in perfidious Albion, which might be a contradiction in terms, that it's a very good way of diminishing and delegitimizing the Scottish independence movement. I'm sure they'll start targeting Wales in due course. But yeah, that funnily enough, the objectives of this campaign were spelled out very, very, very plainly in a declassified document that was that Britain runs something called the Counter Disinformation Unit, which has since been renamed the National Security Information Online Team, perhaps because Whitehall apparatchiks thought this was slightly less threatening and disturbing as a name. But if you go to page 8, it references the Times front page splash on the Henry Jackson Society's claims of Iranian meddling in Scott's election. It lists the very obvious reasons that this is bullshit. It states that the Times report didn't align with the Counter Disinformation Unit's own monitoring. These claims were discussed with social media platforms directly, like Twitter and Facebook, who found no evidence. So that's a very clear thing. And it states that this story prepared for possible unfair result type narratives post-election. So quite clearly, in advance, the foundations of the narrative that there had been election meddling were being laid in case the wrong result occurred. And this was, of course, I believe it was the first Holyrood, that's the Scottish Parliament election, where Alba, which is the late Alex Salmond's breakaway Scottish Independence Party, was running for office. So yeah, the utility of this is very, very clear. But what's quite interesting is how the CDU stated this story gained little traction and had no major impact. Now, I mean, this was widely reported, including by the BBC, of course. But yeah, I think that people are so wise and also just tired of these bullshit narratives of Russian meddling at this point or foreign meddling at this point that they reflexively reject it. Like does anyone, apart from maybe like some tiny percentage of the population who are completely deranged, Russophobic, paranoid lunatics, believe that Putin is behind the boats reaching Dover? I saw widespread mockery, like almost universal mockery of this on social media when it landed. Nobody's buying it anymore. It's just yet another example of how utterly divorced from public perceptions mainstream media reporting is, but also in a kind of optimism-inducing way, the fact that they can't get away with this rubbish anymore. It was very potent propaganda narrative of Russian meddling in everything, or Russia weaponizing dolphins and all this other rubbish. Like, a lot of people believe this, and we were told this for day in, day out for many, many years. It doesn't have the impact it once had. And I think that strongly suggests that, people now understand that they are being lied to on an industrial scale by the mainstream media. And that is why that may account for why so many people have joined us on the stream today. If so, colour me delighted and flattered.
Well, indeed. So 1,226 of you watching now. So thank you to all of you who are tuning in on YouTube and on Twitter. Good to have you all with us. Now, just to reach our final point here, you mentioned a gentleman by the name of Stuart MacDonald, who is should we say, aligned with certain dubious elements in the security state, claiming that a few years ago, disinformation was being weaponized to record levels. And this is a guy who we've mentioned before. Is a man with several, shall we say, rather interesting associations, including with, I think, the Integrity Initiative and other disinformation actors within the British security state system. And his interesting career probably tells us an awful lot about the British security services bid to hollow out the Scottish independence movement. That if guys like this were able to make a career for themselves in the the party that nominally led the Scottish independence movement, then it tells you an awful lot about like how that got undermined by the London government itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, and I think that yes, that, I mean, we could do an entire program on Stuart MacDonald, but I mean, yeah, like he's out of Parliament now, but his job to neutralize the Scottish independence movement via the SNP was, complete, basically. Like he had caused personally, both directly and indirectly, massive fissures and disagreements within the party. He had been pushing for all sorts of insane policies like the reintroduction of national service in Scotland, except it would be called national resilience, so it's completely different, which was very unpopular with the SNP. He was very much at the forefront of pushing trans rights as a wedge issue within the wider movement. So that has caused the SNP itself a large number of problems. But I mean, if we look at polls, support for Scottish independence has never been higher. And I think that the ever diminishing impact of propaganda like this is a testament to how the English ruling class have, things are starting to spin out of control. I mentioned the Welsh nationalist movement that's growing in strength and number regularly as well. And I think that, we are, this is the death throes. I mean, Tony Benn had a great line, which is, the United Kingdom is the last true vestige of the British Empire, and its splintering into three separate countries will be the very end of the British Empire. And I don't think that he was entirely wrong, actually. And it would be a huge blow to Anglo-American imperialism if Wales and Scotland were to go independent. So may that blessed day come sooner rather than later.
Well, the United Kingdom, so-called, was put together in order to pursue world conquests, and when it can no longer pursue world conquests, it will probably, on the current trajectory, disintegrate. And I'll conclude my contribution for this week by saying the only future for these lands of ours that we dwell in is to go in the direction of socialism, is to overthrow the wretched and contemptible, corpulent, parasitic ruling class that sits in the city of London, and make ourselves a socialist federation of England, Scotland, and Wales, which is no longer an island which is facing, should we say, outwards towards conquest, but one which is interested in internal development. Now, that's not going to be an easy task, given that there is a significant section of the population here who still make their money off imperialism. But it's vital, because the only thing that the continued rule by the City of London and the parasitic ruling class is going to do is to drag what's left of this country down into the gutter as they attempt to preserve themselves. What we've seen in the last couple of hours of this show, and thanks to all 1,250 of you watching, is that the people who run old perfidious Albion don't actually care about the population of this island. They don't even actually care about their former world conquering plans really anymore. What they care about is clinging on for another few years. That's the only vision that they've got. The entire state, as Craig Murray has revealed in his latest article, is dedicated towards just funneling money to the ruling class in various different ways, not doing anything positive, not developing the country in any progressive sense at all. And until we get rid of this wretched class of people, this is the way it's going to go.